Picture a quiet, fog-drenched town in mid-1950s America. Maple Street is normally serene, lined with lampposts and old brick sidewalks. But one night, a stranger appears, carrying secrets that will stir the calm and pull Detective Henry Sullivan into a mystery he cannot ignore. Detective Henry Sullivan adjusted his fedora against the chill evening air. The fog clung to Maple Street like a thick blanket, softening the edges of the lamplight and muting the sound of passing cars. He had lived in this town for nearly 20 years, and he knew every twist of its streets, every neighbor's routine. Tonight, however, the quiet seemed wrong. Anticipatory, a lantern flickered in the distance, bobbing along the sidewalk. Sullivan's instincts told him to approach cautiously. As he drew nearer, he saw a man standing by the curb, coat collar turned high, hands hidden in pockets. The stranger's eyes glimmered beneath the brim of a hat, scanning the row of houses as if seeking something or someone. "An evening," Sullivan called, tipping his hat. "You seem lost." An man turned, expression guarded but polite. "Detective Sullivan?" he asked, voice low and steady. "I was told you might help." And Sullivan's eyebrows rose. "Depends on what kind of help you're asking for. Maple Street hasn't had trouble in years." "I'm not from here," the man replied, glancing behind him into the fog. "But something, has followed me. I need answers before it's too late." Sullivan's curiosity flared. He had dealt with missing persons and petty thefts, but a stranger arriving under such circumstances was unusual. "All right," he said, gesturing to the nearby bench. "Sit. Tell me everything you can." Man complied, sitting carefully, the lantern casting shifting shadows across his face. He introduced himself as Thomas Ward, a historian traveling through town to catalog old buildings and records. But his story was fragmented, nervous. There were mentions of old letters, cryptic warnings, and a particular house at the end of Maple Street, one that had been abandoned for years. Namedahanish knew and listened, noting every detail. The house had once belonged to the Thornton family, a line of bankers and industrialists who had vanished under mysterious circumstances decades ago. Locals whispered of strange lights, noises, and occasional visitors who claimed to hear voices in the walls. Nord leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "There's something in that house. Something hidden. I found a clue. A lantern, marked with a symbol, buried under loose bricks in the cellar. Whoever owns it, they've been watching me." Sullivan's mind raced. An abandoned house. Strange symbols. A concerned historian. It was the beginning of a classic case. He knew the town would soon be buzzing with rumors, and it was up to him to uncover the truth before fear spread. NNHE stood and offered Ward his arm. "Let's take a look. But stay close. The fog can hide more than just shadows." Two men moved toward the end of Maple Street, the fog swirling around them like smoke from a distant fire. As they approached the house, Sullivan noticed the windows were dark, unbroken, yet they seemed to glimmer faintly with an inner light. The door was slightly ajar, though no one had reported activity in years. As they stepped closer, a faint sound echoed from the upper floor. A soft creak of a footstep, deliberate and slow. Sullivan froze, heart pounding. Someone or something was inside the house. And before they could reach the door, the lantern in Ward's hand flickered violently, casting the first long shadows across the walls. Detective Sullivan and Thomas Ward enter the Thornton house, long abandoned and wrapped in mystery. Every creak of the floorboards and flicker of candlelight seems alive, whispering secrets that only the brave can uncover. Detective Henry Sullivan pushed open the front door, its hinges protesting with a groan that echoed down the long, empty hallway. The air inside was thick with dust, the scent of old wood and decades of disuse hanging heavily. Thomas Ward followed closely, lantern in hand, its dim light revealing faded wallpaper peeling at the corners. "This place hasn't been touched in years," Sullivan muttered, stepping carefully over a broken floorboard. "And yet, it feels like someone's been waiting for us." Ward nodded, eyes darting to the shadows that shifted oddly under the lantern's glow. "I've studied the house," he said softly. "The Thorntons were meticulous, secretive. I believe the cellar holds the key. The lantern I mentioned was hidden there. But I fear we're not alone." And Sullivan's gaze swept the hallway. Broken furniture lined the walls. A few family portraits hung crookedly, their painted eyes seeming to follow them. He felt the familiar tingle of anticipation, the quiet, careful observation that detectives relied on. Every sound mattered. Every shadow might reveal a clue. They moved toward the cellar door, a narrow trap beneath a worn rug. Ward knelt and produced a small key, the one he had discovered tucked beneath a brick in the front yard. With a hesitant twist, the lock clicked, and the heavy door creaked open to reveal the stairs leading down. The cellar was colder, damp, and heavy with the smell of earth. Sullivan switched on a small flashlight while Ward raised the lantern, its flickering flame casting dancing shadows against stone walls. There, in the corner, a small pile of bricks had been recently disturbed. Ward knelt and reached beneath, retrieving the brass lantern he had described. "It's here," Ward whispered, "just as I found it." Sullivan examined the lantern. Its surface was engraved with a strange symbol, a crescent moon intertwined with a key. The craftsmanship was meticulous, suggesting it belonged to someone who took great care with their possessions. "Any idea what it means?" he asked. Ward shook his head. "Only that it's important. Whoever placed it here wanted it hidden, but not forgotten. It's part of something larger. A message, perhaps, or a warning." Sullivan's attention was drawn to the far wall of the cellar. There was a small door, partially concealed behind stacked crates. It appeared ordinary, but something about its alignment with the lantern's placement caught his eye. He knelt to inspect the floor near the door and noticed faint scratches, signs that it had been opened recently. "Someone has been here," Sullivan said quietly, "and they want something, or they're leaving something for us." Ward swallowed hard, a hint of fear in his eyes. "I've been followed since I arrived in town. Whoever this is, they've been waiting, watching. They know I've found the lantern." Sullivan nodded. He felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle in his chest. The town, the house, and now the cellar held secrets, and they had only scratched the surface. Every step forward could reveal answers, or it could alert the watcher who had been silently tracking Ward. As Sullivan reached for the small door, a sudden creak echoed from above. The floorboards in the house's main level shifted, as if someone were pacing slowly, deliberately. The lantern flickered violently, casting long, trembling shadows across the cellar walls. Sullivan froze. Someone was in the house with them, and the next move could reveal friend, foe, or something far stranger. Detective Sullivan and Thomas Ward ascend the old house's creaking staircase. Every step on the upper floor hints at hidden secrets and long-buried dangers, and the house seems to respond to their presence with whispers and shadows. Detective Henry Sullivan led the way up the narrow staircase, each step groaning beneath their weight. The lantern cast long, flickering shadows that seemed to dance along the faded wallpaper and warped wood. Thomas Ward followed closely, clutching the brass lantern he had discovered in the cellar, his eyes darting to every corner. Sullivan paused at the landing, listening. The house was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Even the wind outside had faded to a whisper. He scanned the hallway, noting several doors, all closed, their paint chipped and aged. Something about the arrangement of the hallway felt deliberate, as if each room had been placed with intention, holding memories or warnings for those who entered. "Which door first?" Ward whispered, his voice tense, and Sullivan's eyes fell on the second door from the top of the stairs. Its handle was tarnished but polished, as though someone had touched it recently. "This one," he said. "It's subtle, but the signs are clear. Someone has been here, either leaving clues or waiting." Ward nodded, and Sullivan slowly turned the handle. The door opened into a bedroom, long abandoned. Dust covered the furniture, but the bedspread was slightly askew, as if someone had lain there recently. An old writing desk stood against the wall, papers scattered across its surface. Among them, Sullivan noticed a small notebook with faded handwriting. He picked it up carefully, leafing through the pages. It detailed observations of visitors, dates of arrival and departure, and cryptic notes about lights in the windows and shadows in the hallways. It was meticulous. The work of someone who had watched the house and its inhabitants for years. "Look at this," Sullivan said, pointing to a series of symbols penciled in the margins. "These aren't just notes. They're a map, a code, maybe even instructions." Ward leaned closer. "Do you think it's the same person who left the lantern in the cellar?" And Sullivan's eyes narrowed. "Could be. Whoever this is, they've been planning for a long time. And they want someone, us, Or maybe just you, to follow the trail. A faint creak echoed from the hallway outside, making both men freeze. The shadows in the room seemed to shift, lengthen, and draw back as if the house itself were breathing. Sullivan's instincts told him that someone, or something, was observing them, waiting for the right moment to act. NNHE returned to the desk and examined a small, folded envelope marked with the same crescent-and-key symbol as the lantern. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a hand-drawn map of the upper floor, highlighting one door at the end of the hall with a note. Where the watcher waits, truth is revealed. Sullivan's pulse quickened. The map matched the house perfectly, yet it suggested the presence of a hidden observer. Someone who had been guiding the clues from above, unseen but always present. Ward swallowed hard, his hand trembling on the lantern. "I've seen the shadow on the stairs before," he said quietly. "Every time I came near the house, it was there, watching." Sullivan nodded. "Then it's time to meet our watcher. And whatever we find behind that door may finally explain the lantern, the notebook, and the stranger's warnings." NNTHE, two men crept down the hallway toward the end door, every floorboard groaning beneath their careful steps. As Sullivan reached for the handle, a low, deliberate knock came from inside the room. 3 knocks, in perfect rhythm, as if signaling them. Sullivan froze. Someone was waiting, and the truth was just beyond that door. Detective Sullivan and Thomas Ward confront the mysterious presence on the upper floor of the Thornton house. The watcher, long hidden in the shadows, finally reveals themselves, and the truth shakes the foundations of everything Sullivan thought he knew. Detective Henry Sullivan's hand hovered over the doorknob. The 3 deliberate knocks echoed in his mind, a rhythm that felt like a warning. Thomas Ward gripped the lantern tighter, his knuckles white, eyes scanning the hallway for movement. Every creak of the old floorboards seemed amplified in the silent house, and Sullivan took a slow breath, then turned the knob and pushed the door open. Inside was a small study, its walls lined with bookshelves, stacks of papers, and old artifacts from the Thornton family. But it wasn't the room itself that drew their attention. It was the figure standing near the window, back turned, watching the fog drift past the street below. NNTHE figure turned slowly, revealing an elderly man with sharp, piercing eyes and a posture that suggested both authority and careful observation. He wore a long coat, and in his hand, he held a notebook similar to the one Sullivan had found. "And I wondered when you would arrive," the man said calmly. His voice carried the weight of years, careful and measured. "I am the watcher." Sullivan stepped forward cautiously. "The watcher?" NNTHE man nodded. "For decades I've observed this house, its secrets, its visitors. Every light in the windows, every creak in the halls, every note, every lantern. I have seen it all. And now, you, Detective Sullivan, and you, Mr. Ward, have come far enough to understand." Ward's breath caught. "You're the one leaving the lanterns and the notes?" NNTHE watcher smiled faintly. "Yes, but only to guide the worthy. The house has its secrets, and not everyone can handle them. You two have shown courage and curiosity. That is why I reveal myself now." And Sullivan scanned the room, noticing the meticulous order of books, papers, and maps. "What is all this? And why the warnings?" NNTHE watcher gestured to a large map pinned to the wall, marked with lines and symbols matching those in the notebook and lantern. "This house records events, choices, and secrets. The Thornton family had knowledge, things they wished to protect. I preserved their legacy, guiding those who might uncover the truth. The lanterns, the maps, the notes, all are steps toward understanding the house's hidden heart." Ward swallowed nervously. "And the lantern in the cellar? Why was it buried?" "It is a key," the watcher explained. "Not just to the physical house, but to the knowledge it contains. Only someone who finds it, follows its clues, and deciphers the maps can access the full story. That story is both a warning and a lesson." And Sullivan's mind raced. He had been trained to observe, to piece together clues, but this was unlike anything he had encountered. The house, the watcher, and the lantern were part of a system designed to reveal truths carefully, deliberately, and only to those prepared to understand. NNTHE watcher's gaze shifted to a shadow near the ceiling, a faint movement Sullivan hadn't noticed. "And yet," the watcher said quietly, "not everyone is meant to see the final truth. Someone is already inside, watching." The lantern has drawn more than you here tonight." And Sullivan's heart skipped a beat. From the corner of the study, the shadows seemed to lengthen and twist. Someone, or something, was still observing. And before they could react, a low, deliberate laugh echoed softly through the room, chilling them to the bone. Detective Sullivan and Thomas Ward followed the clues to the attic, where the Thornton house keeps its oldest and most dangerous secrets. Every corner hides messages from the past, and the air feels alive with whispers. Detective Henry Sullivan climbed the narrow staircase to the attic, each step creaking ominously beneath his weight. The lantern in Ward's hand cast flickering shadows along the slanted walls, and the dust in the air sparkled in the dim light. Sullivan's instincts told him that this floor, long abandoned, nearly forgotten, held the final pieces of the mystery. Ward followed closely, his eyes scanning the room for anything unusual. "The Watcher's notes mention this floor repeatedly," he said quietly. He warned that the attic is where the past speaks the clearest. Sullivan nodded, running his hand along the railing. The attic was larger than it appeared from the outside, filled with forgotten furniture, trunks and crates stacked high. Every object seemed to radiate history, each a small chapter in the Thornton family's story. At the far end of the attic, a small trap door caught Sullivan's attention. Its edges were slightly worn, suggesting it had been used recently. "There," he whispered. The notes and the lantern both hinted at something hidden behind that door. Knelt to inspect it, running his fingers along the latch. "It's locked," he murmured. "But I think the key might be hidden nearby." He swept the lantern over the surrounding floorboards, finally noticing a loose plank. Beneath it lay a small brass key, its surface engraved with the crescent-and-key symbol from the lantern. Sullivan inserted the key and turned it. The trapdoor creaked open, revealing a narrow passageway leading into a hidden room. The air inside smelled of cedar and old paper, a faint metallic tang suggesting iron or perhaps something more mysterious. Inside, the room was small but filled with meticulous records. Journals, letters, photographs, and ledgers, detailing the Thornton family's business dealings, personal correspondences, and cryptic observations. Sullivan's eyes widened. The handwriting was precise, almost obsessive, cataloging dates, names, and curious events surrounding the town and its residents. Ward picked up one of the ledgers, flipping through the pages. "It's incredible," he whispered. "These notes go back decades. They record more than the family's history. They hint at hidden passages, secrets, even warnings." And Sullivan moved to the corner, where a bundle of letters was tied with ribbon. He untied them carefully, discovering correspondences between the Thorntons and a series of unknown individuals. Each letter contained subtle warnings, advice, or instructions, many referencing a mysterious guardian watching over the house. The Watcher. Ward breathed. "It's not just one person. It's a role, a duty." Sullivan nodded, piecing it together. The lantern, the upper floor notebook, the Watcher, and now this hidden attic archive, all were connected, forming a carefully orchestrated chain of guidance and warning. The house itself seemed to demand attention, careful observation, and courage from those who dared enter. Suddenly, a faint whisper echoed through the attic, sending a shiver down their spines. The shadows seemed to bend and stretch, forming a vague silhouette near the crates. Sullivan's hand instinctively went to his coat pocket, where his flashlight rested. The figure moved closer, deliberate and silent. And Sullivan swallowed hard. Someone, or something, was not just watching from the shadows. And as the lantern flickered violently, Ward whispered, "Detective, it knows we're here." Detective Sullivan and Thomas Ward uncover a cache of letters that may reveal the Thornton house's deepest secret. Each message holds clues, but also danger. Someone has been carefully watching their every move. Detective Henry Sullivan crouched among the trunks and crates in the attic, his flashlight illuminating a small wooden box tucked beneath a dusty pile of linens. Thomas Ward held the lantern high, casting trembling light across the stacks of forgotten furniture. The air was thick with the scent of old paper, and Sullivan carefully lifted the lid of the box. Inside, he found a bundle of letters tied with red ribbon, their envelopes yellowed with age. Each bore the same crescent-and-key symbol he had seen on the lantern and in the notebooks. His pulse quickened. These letters could hold the key to understanding the Thornton family, the Watcher, and the mysterious lanterns. Ward leaned over, eyes wide. "I've never seen handwriting so precise. Whoever wrote these, they were meticulous." Sullivan untied the ribbon and began reading. The letters were addressed to various residents of the town, written in careful, flowing script. Some contained cryptic warnings. Trust only what you see and hear. The shadows will speak to those who listen. Others referenced hidden compartments and secret passages in the house, instructions on how to interpret symbols, and notes on visitors who had come before them. These aren't just letters, Sullivan murmured. They're a guide, a map through the house's mysteries. Ward nodded. And someone left them intentionally, knowing that someone like us would eventually find them. But the handwriting changes slightly in each letter. It's as if multiple people were writing, all following the same instructions. Sullivan flipped through more letters. One in particular caught his eye. It was addressed to the chosen observer and described the responsibilities of the watcher: to preserve knowledge, guide those deemed worthy, and ensure that the secrets of the house were not misused. It mentioned the lantern, the crescent-and-key symbol, and a hidden attic room where the most important documents were stored. And here, Sullivan said, pointing. The letter mentions a final room in the attic. That must be where the Thornton family kept their most sensitive records, the ones that explain why the Watcher exists. Newward glanced around nervously. Do you think whoever the Watcher is could still be here, watching us? And Sullivan's eyes scanned the shadows. The attic seemed quiet, but the house had a way of making its presence known. Every floorboard creak, every shifting shadow suggested that they were not alone. NNHE carefully placed the letters back in the box, taking only the one addressed to the chosen observer. It felt heavier in his hands than it should have, as if the knowledge it contained had substance, weight, and purpose. Suddenly, a sharp creak came from the far corner of the attic. Sullivan and Ward froze. The shadows near the trunk shifted, revealing a dark figure silently observing them. The lantern flickered violently, and in that brief flash of light, Sullivan thought he saw a hand reaching for the letters. Someone, or something, was determined to protect the Thornton house's secrets. And now they had been noticed. Detective Sullivan and Thomas Ward faced the Watcher directly in the attic. Warnings, riddles, and secrets surface as the house tests their courage and determination, revealing the stakes behind the Thornton family's hidden legacy. Detective Henry Sullivan's hand instinctively went to the flashlight as the shadow near the crates shifted. Thomas Ward gripped the lantern tighter, its flickering light casting uneasy shadows along the attic walls. Step forward, a calm, deliberate voice commanded. And from the darkness, an elderly man emerged. His eyes were sharp, alert, and unmistakably observant. He wore a long coat and held a notebook similar to the ones they had discovered before. Sullivan instinctively straightened, respect and caution mingling in his expression. "And you are the intruders," the Watcher said, his voice measured but not threatening. "But perhaps you are also the worthy." Sullivan took a slow step forward. "Watcher, we mean no harm. We've been following the clues, trying to understand the Thornton house and its secrets. We found the lantern, the letters, and the maps. Now we've found you." NNTHE Watcher's gaze softened slightly, but his intensity remained. "Good. You have seen much, yet you understand little. The house does not reveal its truths to everyone. Those who enter unprepared are lost to it, swallowed by shadows and whispers." Newward swallowed nervously. "We're ready. I think we're ready to understand." NNTHE Watcher studied them, as if weighing their sincerity. "Very well," he said. "But understand this. The Thornton family's secrets are not only knowledge, they are responsibility. The lantern guides, but it also chooses. The letters instruct, but they also warn. This house tests courage, attention, and discretion." Sullivan's eyes scanned the attic, noting every shadow, every corner. "And if someone fails the test?" NNTHE Watcher's expression darkened. "They are removed from the equation, forgotten, as though they had never been here. That is why vigilance matters. That is why the letters and the lantern exist, to ensure the worthy prevail." NNHE gestured to the single letter Sullivan had taken from the box. "That letter names you as observers. Follow its instructions carefully. The attic holds the answers to the Thornton house's past, present, and purpose. But beware! There are others who have watched, and they are not always friendly." And Sullivan nodded, understanding the weight of the task. The Watcher was not merely a guardian of the house, but a custodian of the Thornton family's secrets, guiding those who could carry the burden responsibly. N-Word, still tense, glanced around. "Do you mean someone else is in the house?" NNTHE Watcher inclined his head. "Yes, a presence that has been hidden for decades, careful, deliberate, patient." It waits for the wrong moment, testing your focus. You must proceed without fear, without haste, and without distraction. Only then will the house reveal its final truths. And Sullivan's mind raced. He understood now that the lantern, the letters, the attic, and the watcher were all part of a meticulously orchestrated challenge. The Thornton house demanded attention, respect, and courage, traits that could not be feigned. And suddenly, a faint scraping sound echoed from the attic's far corner. The watcher's eyes narrowed. "It begins," he said. Sullivan and Ward froze, realizing that the hidden presence had made its move. A shadow detached itself from the darkness, gliding silently toward them, deliberate, patient, and unmistakably aware of every step they had taken. NNTHE next moment would test not only their courage but their wits. Someone, or something, in the Thornton house had chosen to act. Detective Sullivan and Thomas Ward discover a hidden passage in the attic, leading deeper into the Thornton house. Every step brings them closer to the heart of the mystery, and closer to unseen dangers. Detective Henry Sullivan's heart pounded as the shadow detached itself from the far corner, then paused near the stacks of crates. Thomas Ward held the lantern high, its flickering light casting nervous shadows along the slanted walls. NNTHE, Watcher's voice cut through the tense silence. "This is the test. Follow carefully, and you may uncover the truth. Hesitate, and the house will obscure it." And Sullivan studied the far wall, noticing faint lines in the wooden paneling, subtle, deliberate. "The panel," he whispered to Ward. "There's a seam here. Someone moved it recently." Ward leaned closer, brushing dust from the edge. With a careful push, the panel shifted, revealing a narrow, dark passage beyond. The smell of damp earth and old wood wafted out, chilling them both. Sullivan shone his flashlight inside, revealing steps descending into shadows. "This must be it," Sullivan said, gesturing to the passage. The Watcher's letter mentioned a hidden route, a corridor used to move unseen through the house. Ward swallowed nervously. "And whoever left the lantern, maybe they used this passage too." And Sullivan nodded. "Let's move slowly. Every sound matters." They entered the passage, the walls closing around them. Dust motes floated in the lantern light, and every step echoed as if the house itself were listening. Sullivan's instincts told him that this corridor had been used carefully, designed for stealth. It was narrow, low, and winding, eventually opening onto a small landing above the main hallway of the house. Thus Sullivan crouched, peering through the opening. Below, the main floor was quiet, empty, yet faint shadows moved across the walls. He could hear soft breathing, almost imperceptible, and the distant sound of footsteps in another part of the house. "Someone else is here," Ward whispered. "Watching us again." Sullivan's eyes narrowed. "Yes, and they've been waiting, judging every step we take." They followed the passage carefully, descending a hidden staircase that opened onto the East Wing corridor. The air was colder here, and the silence was thick. Sullivan glanced at the floorboards, noticing faint scratches, signs of careful movement, possibly from someone older but still strong, moving with precision and purpose. At the end of the corridor, they found a small study tucked behind a false wall. Inside, dozens of ledgers, letters, and maps were meticulously arranged. The glow from the lantern illuminated notes that detailed visitors, events, and cryptic warnings. Every piece of the Thornton house's history was cataloged here, preserved for those deemed worthy. "This is it," Sullivan murmured. The heart of the house's secrets. Ward reached for a map on the desk, pointing to a series of marked rooms and corridors. "These correspond with the letters we found in the attic. Whoever created this, they planned everything carefully. Every visitor, every clue, every lantern." Sullivan's attention was drawn to a small envelope addressed simply, "For the chosen observer." He picked it up, hands steady despite the tension. The envelope contained a single note, written in precise, flowing script. "The final truth awaits, but the house tests those who seek it. Courage, discretion, and vigilance will guide you. All else is lost to shadow." Now, suddenly, a floorboard creaked sharply behind them. Sullivan turned, flashlight and lantern poised. A figure stepped into the doorway, face hidden in shadow, hands empty. Yet Sullivan felt the weight of intent behind them. Someone had been following the trail all along, and now the final confrontation in the Thornton house was about to begin. Detective Sullivan and Thomas Ward reached the central chamber of the Thornton house, where the truth of the family's secrets and the Watcher's purpose finally begins to unfold. Every shadow and whisper carries meaning and danger. Detective Henry Sullivan's hand tightened around the flashlight as the shadows stepped closer, deliberate and silent. Thomas Ward clutched the lantern, its flickering light illuminating the figure's edges. Sullivan's mind raced. Whoever this was, they had followed the clues with precision, moving through the house undetected until now. NNTHE Watcher's voice came softly from behind them. "Do not be alarmed. They are here to test your vigilance, as the Thornton family always intended." And Sullivan stepped forward, voice steady. "We seek answers. We've followed the lantern, the letters, the maps, and the attic clues. Whoever you are, we mean no harm, only understanding." NNTHE figure paused, then lowered their hood, revealing a face lined with years but alert with purpose. "I am the last guardian of the Thornton legacy," they said. "You have come far enough to see the heart of this house. But seeing is not enough. Understanding requires courage and discretion." Sullivan's eyes swept the room. At its center was a large desk, covered in ledgers, letters, and a series of documents marked with the familiar crescent-and-key symbol. Behind the desk, a wall of shelves held photographs, journals, and small artifacts from decades past. Every object seemed carefully preserved, each telling a story, each holding a lesson. Edward approached cautiously, lifting a small photograph. These are the previous guardians, aren't they?" An NTHE figure nodded. "Yes, and each left behind instructions, guidance, and warnings. The house selects, observes, and tests. Those who pass are entrusted with knowledge. Those who fail are forgotten." Then Sullivan examined the ledgers and notes, realizing they contained far more than family history. They recorded patterns of behavior, unusual events in the town, and even warnings about individuals who had entered the house seeking secrets for personal gain. The Thornton family had created a system, a living archive, guided by the Watcher, to preserve truth and prevent misuse. And this, Sullivan whispered, "this is more than a house. It's a record, a guardian, and a test all in one." NNTHE Guardian smiled faintly. "Exactly. And the lantern you carry, Mr. Ward, is both key and guide. It has brought you here, revealing the passages, the hidden letters, and the secrets of the attic. The house communicates through it, ensuring only the worthy reach this chamber." Ward's hands shook slightly as he placed the lantern on the desk. "So everything we've experienced, the shadows, the hidden passages, the Watcher's warnings, it was all part of the Thornton family's plan?" "Yes," the Guardian said softly. "And now you have the choice. To carry the legacy forward, guarding these secrets and guiding future seekers, or to leave, knowing what you have learned but passing the responsibility to others. The house watches, always. The choice is yours." Before Sullivan could respond, a sudden sound echoed through the chamber, a soft thud, then a scraping along the walls. The shadows stretched unnaturally, and the lantern flickered violently. The last hidden presence in the house had revealed itself, moving closer, deliberate and intent. Sullivan and Ward realized that the Thornton house still had one final test to offer, and the moment of truth had arrived. Detective Sullivan and Thomas Ward faced the final revelation in the Thornton house. Every clue, every shadow, every whisper converges into the ultimate truth, the fate of the house, the lantern, and its guardians. Detective Henry Sullivan's flashlight trembled slightly in his grip as the final shadow approached. Thomas Ward's lantern flickered violently, throwing elongated shapes across the chamber walls. Every sound, every movement seemed amplified, as if the house itself were holding its breath. NNTHE last figure stopped near the center of the room, slowly removing their hood. Sullivan's eyes widened. It was not an intruder, not a stranger. It was the Watcher's predecessor, the guardian who had silently preserved the Thornton house's secrets for decades. Their eyes, sharp and deliberate, reflected a lifetime of vigilance and careful planning. "And you've reached the end," the predecessor said, voice calm but firm. "And now you understand the purpose of the lantern, the letters, the maps, and the passages. This house is not merely walls and rooms. It is a living archive, a guardian of lessons, a record of choices made and paths taken. Nord stepped forward, voice trembling. So everything we followed, every clue, every warning, it was all designed to lead us here? An NTHE predecessor nodded. The Thornton family intended for those who were observant, cautious, and brave to reach this chamber. You have passed the tests of courage, discretion, and intelligence. You are now part of the legacy. Sullivan glanced at the ledgers, the letters, the photographs of previous guardians. And the lantern? It is both key and guide, the Watcher's predecessor explained. It illuminates the hidden paths, reveals the letters, and signals the presence of those worthy of the truth. In your hands, it ensures the continuity of this house's purpose. And Word breathed slowly, taking it all in. So we continue the work, preserve the legacy, guide others? Yes, the predecessor confirmed. The house chooses those who can carry its trust. The Thornton family's lessons, preserved over generations, now rest with you. Observe, guide, and protect, just as we did. And Sullivan's mind raced, absorbing the weight of responsibility. The house had tested them, challenged them, and now had deemed them worthy. The shadows in the room seemed to settle, as if the Thornton house itself recognized their achievement. Now THE lantern's glow softened, bathing the room in a warm, steady light. The letters, maps, and ledgers seemed to hum with quiet approval. Sullivan and Ward exchanged a glance, understanding that they had been chosen not only to uncover the house's secrets, but to safeguard them for the future. And outside, the fog lifted slightly, and the first light of dawn filtered through the windows. The Thornton house appeared calm, serene, and unassuming. Yet within its walls lay decades of hidden knowledge, now entrusted to two men who had proven themselves worthy. As they descended the attic stairs, Sullivan paused, glancing back at the chamber one last time. In the far corner, a small shadow shifted, subtle, deliberate, watching, as if the house had one last secret yet to reveal. And Sullivan realized, with a mixture of awe and apprehension, that the Thornton legacy would continue to test, guide, and whisper to those who came seeking its truths. NNTHE lantern pulsed softly in Ward's hand, a beacon of light, memory, and responsibility, a promise that the house's mysteries would endure, awaiting the next seeker,